What's your full name?
Bill Emerson, and that's my official name, Mac Boyd Emerson.
How did you come by the name Bill?
My grandfather said that Mac Boyd was such a horrible moniker that they all just called me Bill, and that's what they did.
Very well, Mr. Emerson, where were you educated in your K through 12?
I went to Fruitvale School for 6 years and graduated from high school at Bells High School. Went to University of Tennessee Martin 2 years, Murray State University 2 years, and got a master's at Middle Tennessee State University.
And what was your area of study in college?
Mathematics and coaching.
Okay. Why did you choose to become an educator?
I was majoring in agriculture, and Basil Crider asked me if I'd like to come back to Bells and coach and teach mathematics one day sitting at a bar stool in Mayor's drugstore, and I like to fell out of the chair. And I went home, thought about it overnight, and called him back and said yes.
And where were you in your education at that time? Were you a freshman, senior, or?
I was finished my sophomore year at Martin, and it was a 2-year college, believe it or not, and everything except ag, so I transferred to Murray State to major in math and come back to Bells.
When did you start teaching in Bells?
In 1957, fall of 57.
And this was the high school?
At the high school.
And how long did you remain a teacher and a coach at Bells?
Until 1975. Mr. Crider got sick, and he had asked me to go back to college and get my superintendent certificate. He said he wasn't going to live much longer, and so I did, and then came back and was principal for 2 years, and then he said he had emphysema real bad.
Okay. And you became the superintendent of schools in Bells?
In Bells, right, for 3 years, and in 1980 was elected by the county commission to be superintendent in Crockett County.
And how long did you serve as superintendent of the Crockett County School?
From then until 1997.
And at that time you retired
I
from the
retired-
Crockett County School?
I retired from Crockett County. I had remained as Bells superintendent all during that same time. They didn't pay me 2 salaries, by the way, but I was superintendent for the county and for Bells City System, and then worked another 10 years for the Bells City System.
Okay. So you were superintendent of the Bells system from 1977 to 2007?
That's correct.
Okay. And the county system from 1980 to 1997?
Right.
Okay. Let's talk about the small schools lawsuit a little bit. Before that lawsuit that was filed, how was education funded in Tennessee?
It was funded through a system called the Tennessee Financial Program, TFP, and the state officials assured everybody in Crockett County that we consolidated the schools, that formula would generate enough money to run the schools in Crockett County, that our primary reason we didn't have enough money to run the 6 systems was we needed to consolidate. We did that, and that turned out to be an absolute lie. It wasn't even close. It wasn't funding the 6 systems, and it certainly didn't fund one system when it was put together. I asked everybody that I could find what the cause was, and nobody could give me a legitimate answer. That went on for several years, and by that time I was asking other superintendents. I found out they had the same problems in county school system.
Yes, sir.
And that's when we really got to talking about something had to be done.
All right. Where did you get the idea about going to court to challenge the way that the state funded K through 12 education in Tennessee?
In 1985, the state was having CEOs for superintendents across the state, and we were having a roundtable discussion, about 15 of us in a group, and come find out 12 of the group went from small schools in counties across Tennessee. And we were fussing about our financial problems, and to my surprise, every one of them sounded the same. we started a small discussion there of what was wrong, and most of them blamed their county commission. Well, I knew the Crockett County Commission had done everything they could do, spend all this money consolidating schools and doing everything else. So I thought about the problem for a couple of months, and then wrote a letter to every system in the state of Tennessee that had 2,500 students or less, and invited them to a meeting in Gatlinburg where all the superintendents got together in September of every year. So we had I invited 35 people and 55 showed up. And we started a discussion about what was wrong. None of us knew what was wrong.
Okay. And you filed it in state court because of the lawsuits in Texas and California where the federal courts ruled that it wasn't a federal problem.
We actually fooled around 3 years trying to find a solution to finance in the public schools in the state of Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And we were told this and told that and get run around and we get run around about this. And finally we ran across a guy that knew about the Texas case, and he told us about what Texas was happening in Texas, and that the only answer, I'm sorry, about Texas, Arkansas, he said the only solution we had to our problem was to file a suit against the state of Tennessee to correct the funding formula, that was our problem.
Okay. And that suit was filed in 1987?
That's correct. It took us from 85 to 87 to get to that point.
How many schools joined in on the small school side of the lawsuit? You recall?
77.
Okay.
We were overwhelmed with how many people ended up joining. We had probably 10 statewide meetings by that time, and we kept attracting attention because everybody had the same problem. Not only the small schools, come to find out, middle-sized schools had the same problem, and by this time we knew that it was a function of state funding and not local. They kept telling us it was a local problem. Well, it wasn't a local problem at all. The local system didn't have the ability to raise the kind of money it took to run the schools.
And the defendant was the state of Tennessee?
State of Tennessee.
And some of the larger systems joined in as interveners, is that correct?
The 10 largest systems in the state of Tennessee, they had an organization and they decided to take the state side. Not that they thought the state the state funding formula was correct, but because they thought they'd lose money in any new formula that came up. We consistently assured them that we were not trying to take money away from anybody. They just needed to increase the pot, but that didn't work.
And at the trial court level, the court ruled in favor of the small school?
The trial lasted 2 whole weeks, and the judge ruled in favor of the small schools. That's correct.
And on appeal, first it went through the Court of Appeals, and they reversed.
Mr. Donaldson, our attorney, had told us on the very beginning that if we win at the lower court level, that the appeals court was very conservative and they would overturn it and we'd have to go on to the state Supreme Court. He told us that because he knew it cost more money to go through all this process.
And that's in fact what happened.
That's in fact exactly what happened.
And when they got to the Supreme Court, they in fact reversed the Court of Appeals and affirmed the judgment of the trial court.
That's exactly right. He thought the decision would be 5-2, and it turned out to be 7-0. Lyle Reed, who was in our adjoining Haywood County, was the Supreme Court judge. He was a justice at that time, Supreme Court justice, and he was insistent that it be a unanimous opinion. We found this out later because Haywood County was just as bad off as we were. And in the trial had really given, it's before the Supreme Court, had really given the state attorneys down the road. It was hilarious, in fact.
Okay. And the result of the holding of the court, they held that the way that Tennessee funded their schools was unconstitutional. Is that?
Totally unconstitutional.
Okay. But as far as crafting a remedy, they stepped out and asked the state and the parties to come up with a remedy themselves. Is that correct?
Yes. But while the trial was going on, the Tennessee Organization of School Superintendents, TOS,
Yes, sir.
initiated a study backed by every educational organization in Tennessee, which was about 10 of them. They all got together and decided they'd have a study of the formula. This was while the trial was going on. This was really didn't have anything to do with the government at all, but a bunch of government agencies had joined in. And this study went on for approximately, I'd say 16 months. While the trial was on the trial lasted for 2 months, and all this had been coming up, of course, for years. And so this went on, was going parallel with the trial. And when the Tennessee Organization of Superintendents we were down about 2 meetings from having something to report on this, and the state of Tennessee just upped and hijacked it and took it away. They told us that we want to look at this as a way to solve the problem. And they'd been coming to all the meetings, they knew what was in it and everything. So it was only going parallel with the trial while
And they came back, and what they did was try to spread the sales tax revenue evenly throughout the state on a per student basis. Is that one of the things that went into the BEP or the funding formula?
No, well, we tried every way in the world to get sales tax revenue changed, and we could not get that done. We were finally told that we were kicking a dead horse, as they put it, when they said we got to find another way around this. That the big cities are not going to give up that sales tax revenue. It was paid per capita in the state, like every one of us pay it. It ought to have been returned back per capita, but it was turned back per situs, which was, it went back where it's collected. So, for example, we went to Jackson and ate out, the sales tax collected in Jackson, stayed in Jackson instead of coming back to Crockett County. But they wouldn't change that. So they had to come up with another formula to modify all of that and make it fair. And that ended up being, of course, the basic education program, which Dr. Bill Sanders at the state of Tennessee came up with.
And do you recall what the impact was to Crockett County schools before the lawsuit and after the BEP was enacted, on how much difference in dollars that was?
I told one of my city colleagues one time, we quit eating sand pie and went to eating cherry pie when they changed it. It's unbelievable the difference that it made. In Crockett County, we started getting 10 times more money from the state when they passed it, and that hasn't changed. Even though we're about to go back to court again, the way it looks like, over one issue, and which they have changed in the last gradually over the last 4 or 5 years. But it's still a very fair distribution of money. It's just going the wrong direction.
Okay, let's talk about, would you describe your activities since you've retired? What kind of things are you involved in now? And you can be glad to hear about the book that you've got now.
Oh.
It's part of that also.
Well, my life revolves still around June, and the second thing is playing golf and go to church every now and then. And I wrote a book, which was most men tell me they don't like, and about half the women tell me they do. It's kind of wild. That sold, I've just bought like 500 copies, close to 500 copies. I'm in the process of selling the last 50 of those 100. So it's been interesting.
What's the name of the book?
Fruitvale. But a lot of it's about the lawsuit in the book.
And if someone wanted to purchase this book, how would they go about doing it?
They can purchase it from me, or they can purchase it from the bookstore in Jackson. I forget exactly the name of it. Something to Read bookstore in Jackson.
Are there any copies at the local library?
Yes, it is. And it's been some up there for sale, and I think they got tired of fooling with it, so we're but it's some up there to read. I think I left 5 copies up there to read. So.
All right, that's it.
Well, thank you.
Good enough.